I was the town's mocked midwife with no children. Then the lonely widow changed everything. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It began as the sun dipped low behind the jagged peaks, casting eerie shadows across the streets. The air was thick with tension. My hands trembled as I pushed through the town square, where whispers curled around me like smoke. "There she is," they muttered, eyes wide with disbelief. "The woman who delivers the babies but has none of her own." Every footfall felt like a hammer against my chest. I could hear the faint chuckles mingling with the murmurs. It wasn't the first time, and I knew it wouldn't be the last. My neighbors gathered in cliques, women with their perfect children, men with their careless laughter. They blew their disdain toward me like the autumn wind, sharp and cold, that I had always wanted to bring life into this world. I had trained day and night, my hands learning the delicate dance of delivery. I envisioned cradling my own little ones, the joy lighting up my heart. But fate had other plans, and my arms remained achingly empty. Then there was her Margaret, the lonely widow. A figure draped in black like a shadow stretching across the earth. Her presence was a mix of sorrow and mystery, a heavy blanket that enveloped her and sent shudders through the townsfolk. Whispers told of her husband's tragic accident, of the rumors that still loomed over her like storm clouds. She kept to herself, yet every now and then, I caught her glancing my way. That day, as I approached my modest cottage, I saw her outside, staring up at my home. Her eyes flickered with something I couldn't place. I felt called, like a moth drawn to a flickering flame. When I approached, her voice broke the silence. "Can you help me?" she asked, her tone heavy with unspoken pain. I had never seen her so close. Her tear-streaked cheeks glistened under the fading light. It was then that I realized I was staring into the depths of untold stories. "What do you mean?" I whispered, heart racing as she stepped closer, a dark aura surrounding her. "Why are you even here?" "I need you, in ways you won't understand yet," she said, eyes narrowing as if reading my soul. Her words hung in the air, thick and electric. I felt my heart race, a wild pulse beating in my ears. I had experienced enough heartbreak to understand the weight of wanting. But what could she possibly want from me? And then it happened. A sudden scream pierced the night, a choked cry that echoed off the walls. We both turned sharply. A child lay sprawled on the ground, the laughter of earlier evaporating, replaced by piercing cries. The crowd surged, moving as one, but I stood frozen. The widow looked deep into my eyes, her silence speaking volumes. I felt the weight of the world press on my chest. If I chose to respond, it could change everything. But did I even have the power to help? Did I dare step into that swirling storm of chaos? As I hesitated, doubt gnawing at my insides, Margaret's voice cut through the din. "Now is your chance. The town will never see you the same again." And just like that, as the crowd erupted around us and my heart raced, an undeniable question thudded against the walls of my mind: what would become of my life when I accepted the fate she was offering? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The shrieks of fear echoed through the air like thunderclaps, drowning out the sounds of my own heartbeat. Instinct kicked in, I surged forward, shoving past the frantic adults who swarmed the child, a small girl who lay sprawled on the cobblestones, her petite form looking so vulnerable against the rough surface. Margaret's presence felt like a shadow looming behind me, yet at that moment, I didn't glance back. The town's disdain felt like a distant memory as the child's mother wailed uncontrollably, her cries shattering the air. I knelt beside the girl, my hands shaking, straining against the pull of doubt that anchored me to the ground. I need space. I barked, and the crowd reluctantly parted, a chasm forming between me and the murmurs of disbelief. Breathing heavily, I checked for signs of life. I felt her pulse a weak flutter. "Someone call for a doctor." I shouted, keeping calm even as panic surged inside me. The wild eyes of the onlookers gathered in anticipation, questioning my ability as they had countless times before. But I couldn't let their doubts seep into my mind. I had to focus. Margaret slid into my periphery. "You can do this," she whispered, her voice steady yet vulnerable. I met her gaze, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of encouragement, an anchoring compassion amidst the chaos. The child groaned softly, and instinct propelled me forward. I dug my fingers into the rough fabric of her clothing, opened my mouth to speak when a sharp gasp rented the air behind me. I turned briefly, seeing a man, the child's father, arrive just in time to witness the unfolding horror. I felt my heart race. "Please, step aside," he shouted, staggering toward us with a look that mixed anger and agony. His eyes searched mine, demanding answers that I was not sure I could provide. "Sir, I'm trying to help," I replied, voice trembling. "She needs get away from her," he roared, shame and fear making his voice tremble. A wave of shame washed over me, and for a fleeting second, I considered retreating, running back to my lonely cottage where judgment wouldn't follow. Then I heard Margaret's voice, low and steady as the ground beneath me. "She's not the enemy," she said, stepping forward, a protective shield between me and the father. "Do you want her to stay or do you want her to go?" Her words hung heavy, and in that moment, the man hesitated, the fight draining from him. I looked back at the girl and I plunged back into my focus. Together we could do this. I could be more than a mockery. I could save a life. As moments bled into eternity, I worked as a midwife, my hands swiftly assessing, recalling every lesson learned in the sterile classrooms and clinical scenarios. Every ounce of my knowledge surged from the recesses of my mind, buoyed by a piercing drive to prove myself. I struck up a rhythm, each action deliberate and painstakingly careful. The crowd held its breath, watching, their whispers quieted, tension prickling the air as hope battled despair. As the moment stretched, I felt Margaret's presence beside me, her spirit a guiding force. And then the girl coughed violently, her body jerking away from the darkness. Gasps erupted around us, and I met Margaret's eyes. Tears mingled in the corners and hope danced between us. The girl opened her eyes. "Mommy," she managed, and the rejoicing cries that followed felt like music resounding into the folds of my heart. The father collapsed to the ground, overwhelmed, his rage transformed into gratitude, realization washing over him, perhaps acknowledging my worth for the first time. "Thank you," he rasped, as I nodded, still catching my own breath, unsure whether I had truly done it alone or if Margaret had been the driving force pushing me past the taunts and rumors. Yet as I lifted my head from that beautiful moment, I noticed in the shadows another figure watching, cloaked in darkness, an enigma, the old woman. From the market, her eyes piercing through the crowd with an unsettling intensity. It was as if she knew something, a secret that wove deeper than the fabric of our knowing. And without warning, my heart dropped into my stomach as she approached, the murmurings of the townsfolk fading into a chilling silence. "The price of what you've done will not go unnoticed, child," she croaked, her voice sending a shiver coursing down my spine. As those words echoed hauntingly, I felt everything shift within me. What price? And would this act of courage, this moment of hope, come with consequences I was not prepared to face? The town's judgment loomed larger than ever, and I realized in that instant Margaret's offer had opened a door, but I had no idea what waited on the other side. The weight of the old woman's words hung in the air like an impending storm, and I could feel their gravity settle heavy on my shoulders. What price? I dared to ask, though a part of me recoiled at the challenge. Her chilling gaze held secrets, untold warnings that threatened to unravel the fragile tapestry of my newfound hope. "You have stirred something in the waters of fate. The currents will not remain still," she replied cryptically, a flicker of something akin to amusement dancing within her eyes. The crowd's awe shifted to confusion, their collective heartbeats racing as uncertainty reigned in the aftermath of the rescue. Margaret, sensing my unease, placed her hand gently on my back, anchoring me. "Let's go home," she urged softly, her voice a soothing balm against the looming dread. I nodded, though I couldn't help but glance back at the old woman. Her figure receded slowly into the crowd, an ominous silhouette I couldn't shake from my mind that as the evening wore on, I found myself in the comforting embrace of my cottage, its walls whispering familiarity as I sat at the small table. The moon cast a silver light through the window, illuminating the scattered herbs and journals that told tales of births and lives unfolded. Yet, like an uninvited guest, the old woman's warning invaded my thoughts, twisting the warmth of the day into a chilling uncertainty. Do you think she was right? I finally asked Margaret, breaking the silence that had settled like a shroud between us, about the price. Margaret looked pained, her brows knitting together. It could just be a warning. Or fear. Her calm demeanor was reassuring, yet the hesitation in her voice gnawed at me. I knew she too felt the tremor in the air, the fragile balance of hope and despair, a precarious dance I was now part of. The days crept by, marked by fragmented moments of joy as the little girl recovered. I was invited to meet her again, her family showering me with gratitude, but with each act of kindness came an undercurrent of worry, a tightening grip within my chest. The girl's father offered me small tokens of appreciation, but I felt like an impostor accepting them, as if fortune was a thread tauntingly close yet perpetually just out of reach. One afternoon, as I cleaned my table, I contemplated the meaning behind the old woman's turmoil, when a soft knock broke the silence. I opened the door to find Elena, the widow from town, standing there, her presence like a serene breeze sweeping through my home. "I've seen what you did. It was beautiful," she murmured, her deep-set eyes alive with a warmth I hadn't anticipated. Elena had always been a figure draped in mystery, her silence contrasting sharply with the raucous judgments of the townsfolk. "Thank you," I replied hesitantly, a mixture of gratitude and curiosity swirling within me. But she raised a hand, silencing my words. "You must know that courage breeds courage. But it also draws attention." We stood on the threshold, the world outside muted as if waiting for our next move. Her gaze pierced through my doubts. Not all the attention will be favorable, the warning felt redundant yet necessary, and in that moment, we connected, sharing unspoken burdens. "What do you mean?" I pressed gently, desperate for clarity. "The old woman, she knows things that the town either whispers or fears to say aloud. You've put yourself in a position to be watched." Her soft voice dipped into a hush, and I could feel the chill tightening against my skin. "And the townsfolk will never forgive you for altering the fate they have set for you." My heart stuttered at her words. I had long been seen as a mockery in their eyes, the midwife with no children to her name. The weight of that identity pressed down on me as I tried to navigate the ebbs and flows of kindness now being offered. What I had done had unearthed my fears alongside its blessings. Elena shifted closer. "We can't change how they've perceived you. But you could help change the story," she urged, earnestness illuminating her features. "There are women who need a midwife, who require guidance. You have a chance now, to be part of the lives they always thought you were unworthy to hold." The hope her words contained sent a flicker of light into the labyrinth of my heart, but it was dimmed by the shadow of uncertainty. Could I rise to this challenge? Would they really accept me, or were the judgments too deep to be washed away? As if answering my silent prayer, I glanced beyond her shoulder, toward the peering eyes of the townsfolk passing by. Whispers floated in the air like leaves scattered by the wind, and I felt the weight of their judgments, their scorn and their unshakable belief that I could never escape my past. Then Elena reached for my hand, her warmth igniting a spark of courage I hadn't known I possessed. "If you choose to fight, you must be prepared. But know this, you are not alone." Feeling the pressure of her touch, I began to imagine forging a new path, an opportunity to reshape my existence amidst the shadows of doubt. The thought ignited my heart, yet I knew it would come with both struggle and sacrifice. "Let's do this," I affirmed, a tremor of hope weaving its way through my resolve. But as I squeezed her hand in solidarity, the haunting memory of the old woman's face lingered in my mind, the unspoken warning shaping a knot of anxiety in my stomach. What awaited us was uncertain, but I was determined to step forward. Just then, as if in response to my resolve, I heard a crash outside. I rushed to the window. In the distance, chaos erupted, a gathering of townsfolk, an unfurling panic. I felt my heart rate spike, conflicting emotions racing through me. What had I done, and what storm awaited us as I prepared to claim my place in this world? The unease drifted through me, a prelude to an unfolding drama that was only just beginning. The commotion outside intensified, voices rising and falling like the tide. I exchanged a quick glance with Elena, the uncertainty mirrored in her expression. There was no turning back now, fate had interwoven our threads, and I sensed that the unraveling would soon begin. Elena, what's happening? I asked, urgency lacing my words. I don't know, she replied, her tone taut with fear, yet the spark of determination in her eyes remained steadfast. Together, we stepped outside, the cool night air wrapping around us like the embrace of a long-lost friend. As we reached the edge of the crowd, the scene before us sparked a deep dread in my heart. Women and men stood agape, fingers pointing and murmuring in hushed tones. The figure at the center of the chaotic circle was unmistakable, a young woman, crumpled on the ground. Her face was bruised and smeared with dirt, but it was her unmistakable cries that struck me the hardest. The girl, I recognized her as the one I had saved. Help! Someone, please! She pleaded, her voice trembling against the murmur of the crowd. I need you. I need my midwife. A chill ran down my spine, intertwining with the remnants of hope I had begun to cultivate. It was unfathomable that this child, whom I had only just begun to understand as a beacon of light in my darkest days, was now in peril again. Instinct took over. Without hesitating, I rushed through the gathering, forcing a path as I approached her. I dropped to my knees beside her, placing my hands gently on her shoulders. I'm here. I'm here, I reassured her, my heart aching at the sight of her beaten spirit. But the murmurings of the crowd crept into my consciousness like poison accusations thickening the air. If she's the savior, one voice called out, then why is this happening again? Their mistrust seeped into my bones, igniting the old doubts I thought were waning. It's not her fault, I implored, yet I felt the truth of my declaration wobble in the face of the chaos. Trembling, the girl looked into my eyes, tears cascading down her cheeks. They said I wasn't to be saved, that I would fail. But you saved me, and now. Her voice broke, unable to capture the weight of the implication. Shoo, listen to me, I whispered, cupping her face in my hands, my heart thundering in my chest. I was wrong to believe they would put an end to your suffering. We can fight this together, but you have to trust me. As I poured my love and fear into her gaze, I caught the eye of one woman in the gathering, a familiar figure from the town, someone who had always held a doubtful opinion of me. Her eyes narrowed, and for a moment, the world shrank to just the two of us, the girl's broken form and the scrutinizing weight of the townsfolk. Elena, I called out, feeling a sense of urgency. We need to get her home. I need to bandage her wounds. Just as Elena was about to step forward, another harsh voice broke through the cacophony. What do you think you're doing? The crowd parted slightly, revealing the mayor, his scowl a storm cloud against the bright moonlight. You think your so-called midwifery would undo the shame you've brought upon us? An icy knot of fear threatened to swallow me whole, yet I felt the pulse of determination fluttering within my chest. This girl needs help. I insisted, fighting against the rising tide of doubt. We cannot let fear dictate our humanity. The mayor's lips curled into a sneer. Help. You only challenge the fate we've tried to uphold. You will be shown your place. A murmur rippled through the crowd, and I could feel the unwanted weight of their expectations, teasing the threads of my resolve. I glanced at Elena, who pressed her lips together, a silent understanding bridging the anxious silence. Stay with her, I instructed, careful to keep my voice steady despite the trembling in my bones. I will get help. I cast one last, desperate look at the girl before pushing through the crowd, only for my resolve to be tested as they closed in around me, whispers a din in my ears. Amidst the clamor, I felt my own heart beat louder. I dashed toward the edge of the commotion, pressing through frightened faces and faces filled with disdain, until I finally broke free into the darkness, breathing in the fresh air that tasted of desperation and fear, but as I darted down the path toward the town's doctor, a shadow loomed ahead, a figure I hadn't expected to see tonight, the old woman, her presence a haunting reminder of the warning I had tried to suppress that a price is always paid, she murmured, her voice like the rustle of dead leaves. And you have stirred the very depths of the town's fate. That I stumbled back, breath hitching as dread clawed at my throat. What do you mean? But she offered no solace as she turned slightly, barely a silhouette against the splendor of the night. The ripple you have created cannot be contained. They will come for you, and for her, before you know it. With that, she vanished from view, leaving behind only a shuddering echo of her presence. Pain surged through me as I tried to comprehend the weight of her words. How could I save the girl if I, too, was in danger? And then it hit me like a thunderclap. The townsfolk, the mayor, the whispers, they were all wolves cloaked as sheep, ready to pounce at the first sign of weakness. The journey I longed to forge was cloaked with insurmountable challenges, and the price seemed far steeper than I had anticipated. I had to decide, could I fight for this child? For my place in a world that wanted to shun me? As I ran through the shadows toward the doctor, I could feel the heartbeat of my future, thudding relentlessly with the weight of every choice I'd yet to make. When I stepped through the doctor's door, the air thickened with impending turmoil, and I knew the real battle was only just beginning. The doctor's office was dimly lit, the air saturated with antiseptic and the faint smell of burnt herbs. I could feel the oppressive silence weigh heavily upon me as I stood in the doorway, my breath hitching at the realization of my sudden isolation. The doctor, an older man with weary eyes, looked up from a ledger, surprise etched on his face that quickly morphed into concern. Quickly, what's happened? He demanded, rising to his feet. He must have sensed the urgency in my posture. There's a girl, I blurted out, nearly stumbling over my words. She's in trouble, badly hurt. Ish needs you. She needs help. The doctor's face drained of color as he swept aside his papers and rushed toward me. Take me to her. Now, we dashed back toward the square, the town's pulse beating heavily in our chests, a collective anxiety surrounding us. My heart hammered, fueled by the fear of what awaited us upon our arrival. Images of the girl's anguished face consumed my thoughts. Would she still be waiting, or would the harshness of our community have driven her away? As we pushed through the crowd, the atmosphere shifted palpably. The initial chaos had calmed slightly, but an undercurrent of tension lingered like a thick fog. I spotted Elena, still kneeling beside the girl, whose breaths were shallow and uneven. Worry clawed at my insides as I pushed through the lingering bodies, the doctor's presence parting the sea of onlookers, some curious, others scowling. Elena, she's slipping away. Help me keep her steady. I urged, dropping to the floor beside the girl, determining not to let my fear be a weakness now. The doctor quickly knelt down, his hands moving with practiced grace as he assessed her wounds. What happened? His voice was steady, drawing attention away from the chaos surrounding us. A gang of men pushed her around, Elena whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. She fell. She tried to run away. Every syllable slashed through my heart, igniting a rebellious fire inside me. This wasn't just about saving her, it was about defying the face of cruelty, in the face of so-called justice. They don't care about us, the girl murmured between labored breaths, staring up at me, her eyes wide and frightened. They said I was cursed, that no one would mourn my fate. My heart sank, and I gently squeezed her hand, desperately willing strength into her frail form. You are not cursed. You're a survivor, and together, we will change this. The doctor's hands moved with authority, but his brows were knitted in concern as he applied pressure to the most severe abrasions, working quickly and efficiently despite the roiling tension in the audience. The crowd shuffled, discontent murmuring through their ranks, the uncertainty hanging in the air as thick as smoke. Keep talking to her, he instructed, not looking up. She needs to know she isn't alone. I leaned down closer to her, brushing strands of dirt-coated hair from her face, feeling the warmth of her spirit in the quiet between her labored breaths. You're not alone. We will fight together, and we're going to push through this. Whispers escalated into sharp comments. Look at her, she can't even stand on her own, someone sneered. How can they believe she is the one to save us? tension crackled like static in the room, and I could feel my heart racing at the rising anger inside me. If they thought I would stand by while they tore down a girl so close to breaking, no, I wouldn't let them win. This was a test, a challenge against not just their views, but against my own fear that we don't need their belief. I shouted, my voice ringing out with uncharacteristic defiance. We've been taught to fear what we can't understand, but it's that fear that has crumbled our community, made us cowards against our own, enough. The mayor's voice boomed from the periphery, piercing the fragile shield of hope. You've no business here. You're nothing more than a mockery of what we should embrace as fate. A collective gasp reverberated through the crowd. I wheeled around, caught somewhere between discovering my strength and succumbing to uncertainty. In that moment of hesitation, I felt an unexpected hand on my shoulder. It was an older woman, a stranger no more in her fleeting kindness. Let him do his work, she spoke softly, her tone holding the weight of 1,000 stories. Perhaps it is we who need to learn how to embrace what is different. Their eyes flickered, some uncertain, others curious, even sparking glimmers of understanding. A murmur rippled through the gathering, a breath of potential swelling through a deflated balloon. You all want to let fear guide us. Look where it has led. She added, confidence in her voice igniting the flickering hope within me. The crowd shifted, whispers slowly morphing into quiet exchanges as they contemplated their own convictions, but just as a hint of acceptance flickered in the air, the darkness that hung over us deepened. The mayor stepped forward, seething with indignation. You'll regret this, mark my words. Defiance leads only to ruin, and as the girl's eyes flitted between us, hopeful yet trembling, I suddenly felt the weight of an unsettling revelation hovering above us all. I would have to prepare for the consequences of everything I was about to embrace, the condemnation of a community faced with their own fears, the battle against fate determined to draw blood from every sacrifice, yet deep within, beneath the mounting fear and apprehension, a flame began to flicker to life. This girl was worth the fight, worth every drop of uncertainty that wrapped itself around our tangled fates. As the doctor finished his work, the girl's eyes glimmered with something stronger than despair, a hint of trust, a willingness to step forward into the unknown. And in that moment, I realized perhaps it wasn't just her destiny that hung in the balance, it was mine, too. With a final look into her gaze, I knew we were forged together in this chaos, ready to challenge the very fabric of the world around us. But no sooner had that thought coalesced within me when a chilling sound pierced the night, a low growl of distant thunder, and I knew deep down, the storm was not only coming, it was already here. The heavens opened up with a ferocity that matched the chaos swirling through the town square. Torrential rain cascaded from the skies, driving the crowd into a disarrayed frenzy. I felt the chill of the downpour coat my skin as I knelt beside the girl, the warmth of her fragile hand contrasting sharply against the cold weight of reality pressing down on me. Elena, help me get her to shelter. I shouted above the din, my heart pounding as I turned toward my friend, desperation flooding my voice. She nodded, urgency palpable in her eyes. The doctor worked quickly to secure the girl with makeshift bindings, a pale shrug of reluctance flashing over his face as we prepared to move her. Stay close. I'll carry her, but we need to be careful, I ordered, slipping an arm under the girl's knees, cradling her head against my chest as her breaths grew more erratic. Every step felt like dragging a weight far too heavy for my growing resolve. As the storm battered us, I could see shadowy figures looming in doorways, their faces half hidden but none too shy to declare their discontent. A thin veneer of belief had been breathed into the crowd, but fear gripped the hearts of many. The mayor stood embittered at the edge of the square, shouting for order, his voice a futile whisper amid the roar of the storm. As we reached the threshold of the old church, our intended refuge, I stumbled, threatening to fall, yet a firm hand caught me, steadying my balance. It was the elderly woman, her weathered face ignited with fierce dignity. Inside. Quickly. She urged, and without hesitation, I pushed through the doors, the congregation of light greeting us as we entered the sanctuary. With careful hands, we laid the girl upon the altar, surrendering her to both the storm and our shared resolve. Prayers hung in the air, a longing for hope that flitted through our minds like flickering candles. The doctor knelt beside her, working diligently as rain pounded against the windows like desperate hands seeking entry. "We're going to need more supplies," he called out, and immediately, the elderly woman turned to the others. "Gather what we can: bandages, water, anything." Tension wafted around us like the incense that lingered in the air. I could see some of the townsfolk inching forward, compelled now by something deeper than mere curiosity. Fear had taken a detour into hope. As they began to move, I glanced down at the girl, and dread washed over me anew. What if she doesn't make it? What if we can't save her? I whispered to Elena, feeling helpless against the tide of uncertainty. "We have to believe," she murmured back, her voice strong yet laden with her own fear that she wasn't revealing. "If we give up on her, we give up on ourselves." The word struck me as profoundly as the rain striking the church roof. "You're right," I breathed, determination rising within me. "We're in this, no matter the consequences." Just then, a distant shout echoed from outside, drawing my attention toward the window. A shimmer of darker figures had emerged from the rain-soaked shadows, thuggish silhouettes I recognized, encroaching upon our sanctuary. My heart raced as I recognized them. The very same men who had tormented the girl already now approached the church, spurred by the power of their cruelty. "Come on!" I yelled, bolting toward the door to intercept them. It felt as though a veil had lifted. This was a moment to confront our fears, to push against the tide of hatred that threatened to swallow us whole. "Elena, stay with her," I ordered as I stepped through the threshold, the rain clinging to my skin, heightening my senses to the pulse of the storm and the looming danger. The murmurs had morphed into guttural laughter as the men realized their dominance, emboldened by the tumult outside. Their eyes glinted with amusement as they sauntered toward the church, storming the boundary we had fought to protect. "Look at them, holed up like scared fools," one man shouted, his sneering voice cutting through the chaos. "You think you can protect the likes of her? She's nothing but a curse." Fueled by anger, I stepped forward, rage burning at the vengeful terror they represented. "You can't define her, or any of us. We stand together against your darkness, against your lies." But in that moment, just as the dark shadows began to close the distance, the older woman's voice rang out from the church behind me, fortified with purposeful strength. "Our faith has weathered storms far worse than this. Your fear cannot take root here." A moment of hesitance gripped the men, glancing back as our words echoed through the rain-soaked night. Unexpected resistance from a community they believed to be crumbling, but before they could back down, a loud crack of thunder split the air, and in that instant, a piercing scream erupted from within the church, a scream that rattled my very foundation. I turned, my heart plummeting as I rushed back inside. What awaited me was chaos. The girl had convulsed violently, her body writhing under the doctor's hands, and the altar was soaked with crimson streaks against the white linens, painting an even more desperate picture of the fight for her life. From deep within the shadowy recesses of the church, I could hear the thud of approaching feet, magnified by the tension hanging thick as smoke. I had stepped forward to challenge the storm outside, and yet, it was the storm within that was about to break me. As I grasped a handhold on the altar, the girl's eyes met mine one last time, shifting and pleading, a spark of terror igniting a flame of determination deep within. I knew in that moment that we were on the cusp of either our salvation or our destruction, and with the fierce roar of the storm still ringing in my ears, I braced myself for the inevitable clash, the truth of our existence hanging in the balance, and hearts drumming with the knowledge that the ultimate fight for us belonged to both the present and the future. The scream lingered in the air, saturating the sanctuary with an urgency that tugged at my heart. I rushed back to the altar, adrenaline propelling my legs where desperation hung like a storm cloud, dark and palpable. What I found was chaos suffused with dread, a tableau of life and anguish wrestling in its rawest form. The girl lay convulsing, her limbs thrashing with frantic energy, and the doctor was doing everything in his power to stabilize her. My eyes darted across the room, searching the faces of the gathered townspeople. They were melded together, an amalgamation of fear, hope, and unyielding determination, but there was no time for hesitation. I grasped a cloth from the nearby table, my hands trembling as I stumbled into the fray, pressing it against her brow as if to chase away the fever that clamored for her life. "Stay with us, please," I whispered, a fervent prayer escaping my lips, the words nearly swallowed by the roar of the storm outside. "What happened?" I murmured, glancing desperately at the doctor, who pressed his fingers around her wrist, grim-faced and focused. "We need to regulate her temperature," he replied tersely, eyes sharpening as he did so. "She's losing too much blood, we have to stop it." As the thunder shook the very foundation of the church, my heart synced with the rhythm of the tempest outside. It mirrored the turmoil within, the helplessness, the weight of my perceived inadequacies pressing down like the oppressive humidity in the air. A slide of doubt flickered through me. What could a midwife, once revered and now mocked, truly offer in this crucible of survival? Elena rushed in, her face pale and resolute, carrying a bundle of makeshift supplies. "I found bandages," she called, but her voice faltered as she caught sight of the girl, of fleeting recognition passing over her features. She approached cautiously, her eyes brimming with sympathy. "I can help," she insisted, kneeling beside me, her essence a balm of fortitude amidst the encroaching dread, and just like that, we began to work in tandem, passing supplies, impressions, hope and fear. The rhythmic motion of our actions felt choreographed against the chaotic currents outside, a fragile unity born from the foundation of friendship and shared conviction, yet, the consciousness of our very existence felt heavy as I glanced out through the rain-streaked windows. The thunderous laughter of the men echoed in my heart like a malicious taunt. Their scorn had long embedded in the town's fabric, a thread woven with malice and prejudice, a constant reminder of the struggle that lay not only before us but ingrained in our past. Amidst the intensity, I noticed the elderly woman fixing her steely gaze at the surrounding crowd, her voice suddenly cutting through the air like a beacon. "Look at us. Look at our strength. She cannot fall to the likes of those who wish us harm. Stand tall." Her bravery kindled a flicker of courage in me, an invocation to confront not just the external peril but the internal shadows that whispered doubts of worth and purpose. "Together, we can save her," I cried, surprising even myself with the conviction lacing my words. "Together, we can defy what has dragged us down and lift each other up." The chicha's occupants, once merely observers, began to come alive, voices intertwining into a chorus of support. Hands reached out, mothers, fathers, those who once stood apart and began to unite, not just in purpose but in shared humanity. But just as the collective strength seemed to solidify, the girl's body arched upward, her eyes rolling into the back of her head before going still, the room exhaling a rare silence that seemed to envelop us all. The doctor desperately checked for a heartbeat, my heart plummeting as the world stilled around me. "Stay with us. We won't let you go," I screamed, fingers gripping her hand as if my resolve alone could tether her to life. Death was not an option, not tonight, not in this sanctuary, not under this storm. But like a pitiful embrace, despair clawed at me as I clung to hope, whispering gentle assurances that felt more like promises to salvage a future that felt so tenuous. Every breath I took was a plea, every beat of my heart an invocation. Just then, a hand brushed against my shoulder, and I turned to see the elderly woman, her face lined with years of struggle and wisdom. "Hold on tight, dear child. Love is the fiercest of fighters." And then another sound, this one layered against the howling wind. The door banged against the wall, revealing silhouettes in the mist, and I turned to confront the shadows spilling into the sacred space. My breath caught. The men from outside had invaded, their faces twisted in exaggerated taunts and mockery. Among them, I froze. The largest figure stepped forward, eyes flaring with malice. "What do we have here? A band of misfits practicing faith where it does not belong?" An unsettling thrill coursed through me. Somehow, I felt their uncertainty clawing back at them, feeling the power shift ever so slightly. Yet, just as I gathered my courage for confrontation, the doctor's voice broke the tense, a tremor pooling in it. "Not now." He shouted at me, his eyes intent on the girl, his focus unyielding amidst the chaos. The cloaked figure, their leader, barked a laugh, dancing with menace as he gestured toward the altar. "What's the matter? Is she not worth your effort? You seem to have lost the battle already." Just then, a flicker of movement caught my eye. The girl's fingers twitched, a soft sigh slipping from her lips. Was it a sign or just a flutter of fleeting life? As I stood between both worlds with hope and despair vying for supremacy, my heart hammered and the atmosphere shimmered around me, each moment heightened and raw. I realized that while the storm outside raged, we had birthed our own storms within, moments of kindness piercing through the darkness, eager for recognition. But, just as I grasped at straws of hope, the ground quaked again, thunder punctuating the silence, and the dark shadows inched closer. The girl's breath steadied, but uncertainty loomed like the clouds above, promising nothing, revealing everything. The question flooded my mind: who would triumph in this battle against the violent gale? As the doors swung shut behind the figures, sealing off the threats of the tempest, the room thickened with an odd anticipation one I couldn't shake. And in that undefinable moment, clarity surged. We were standing on the precipice of fate, moments away from either salvation or undeniable loss. The storm's wrath outside continued to thrash against the church, an ominous percussion punctuating the heavy silence that had fallen on us. I couldn't focus on the malice floating around the room, nor could I ignore the instinctive flicker of hope sparking inside my chest. It was an odd juxtaposition, fear and determination dancing hand in hand like shadows cast by flickering candlelight. The mocking laughter of the men still echoed in my ears, yet I felt the grip of the elderly woman's hand on my shoulder, grounding me with a reminder of our purpose here, not just to save the girl, but to reclaim the respect we so often lost in the faces of those who deemed us unworthy. The doctor's brow was furrowed deeply, hands tracing the girl's pulse, fighting against the shadows that loomed foully. "Elena, can you fetch me heated water?" he commanded, his voice steady but edged with urgency. "And someone, find linens. We need to cover her." Elena nodded, eyes wide but determined, racing to carry out the task as I remained engrossed in a fragile trance between our mission and the overwhelming weight of doubt. Could we truly save her? The fear of defeat clawed at me, echoing the taunts of derision that had peppered my life like bitter rain. But this wasn't just about me anymore. As I knelt beside the girl, the warmth of her tiny hand against my palm felt simultaneously ethereal and grounding. I closed my eyes and whispered a quiet plea to the universe, wishing to infuse her with the love we had carved out in this vulnerable moment. A love forged not just among us two, but echoing from the hearts gathered in this sanctuary, all of whom had felt the sting of betrayal and scorn, that we were bound by our shared pain, by our yearning for acceptance, and by a fierce desire to protect what was fragile. I refused to let the darkness of the world seep into our hopes. We could fight together. The bond grew tangible, a tapestry woven with memories, laughter, and tears, yet just as I steeled myself, the door swung open again, revealing light streaming through the rain-drenched air. This time, it was not the men who had come. It was a woman draped in a cloak that billowed like dark clouds around her. She was a stranger, yet she approached without hesitation, her eyes filled with a mixture of resolve and sorrow. "Please, I'm here to help," she implored, her voice calm yet fervent, a balm to the tension heavy in the air. "I can feel the girl's pain, let me in." Without waiting for permission, she knelt beside us, fingers splayed delicately over the girl's abdomen. I watched in awe as her brow furrowed with concentration. "You must listen closely," she said, eyes glistening with an understanding deeper than words could convey. "The spirit of this child is entwined with nature's fury. We must soothe both body and soul." Her hands glowed with an ethereal light, a gentle warmth emanating from her touch, illuminating the faces around. For a moment, I felt myself swept away in that glow. Perhaps she was an angel sent to help us through the unfolding darkness. "Hold your light steady," the doctor whispered, clearly astonished, his hands faltering as he witnessed a presence beyond the physical realm balancing precariously within the chaos. But just as hope began to take root, the window shattered. A sudden gust flung shards of glass into the air, slicing through the spellbinding atmosphere. The men stood lined against the walls, their features twisted with amusement and malice, eyes glimmering as if they thrived on our suffering. "Are you playing healer now, witch?" their leader spat, taking a step forward, eyes flaring with contempt. "You think some conjuring will make up for the frailties of your kin?" In that moment, a switch flicked inside me. The audacity of his words ignited a fire beneath my skin. I had been mocked and belittled enough. My voice emerged stronger than ever, rising against the cacophony. "We have combined our strength. We are not defined by your wicked perception, we are defined by our courage, our unity." The room seemed to shift, the shadows receded not in dismissal but in awe. The girl continued to lie there, trembling, yet the edges of her spirit flickered alive once more, a light refusing to be snuffed out, swaying like a leaf dancing against the wind. The cheer erupted like an ember catching fire. As our momentum grew, voices echoed in affirmation, some shouted praise, while others joined the chorus of hope. Our collective spirit intertwined like threads in a robust tapestry, solidifying our purpose, but just as we dared to believe, the girl's breath hitched painfully. We gasped together as her eyes fluttered open, unfocused, searching. The room fell silent, all eyes turned on her as time seemed to stretch infinitely. Was this the moment we had all awaited, or merely a cruel joke of fate? Is she coming back? I whispered in a murmur that no one could hear, my heart a tumultuous mass. Suddenly, the woman in the cloak gasped, gripping the girl's hand tighter, crying out, "This is only the beginning. You have to fight, little one." And just like that, as if the universe had been waiting for the right moment, the girl's fingers twitched violently, her body arching, then freezing once more, leaving us teetering on the precipice of despair. Against the backdrop of storm and shadow, an unsettling clarity settled over us all. We might have stirred compassion, awakened courage, but reason teetered dangerously. And I realized, horrified, we were not simply fighting for one life. This was our moment to confront the abyss we had long run from, standing sentinels at the brink of our shared fate. Yet the darkness whispered louder, taunting us still. I could feel the weight of it press against my heart, a heavy reminder that salvation always comes at a price. I could only wonder what that price would be, as the storms outside howled, no longer sparing us from their wrath. Would we prevail together, or would we be swept away, swallowed whole by the tides of fate? The tension in the room stretched thin, almost palpable, as the girl's body convulsed against the wooden floor, casting somber shadows on the walls with each tremor. I held my breath, heart racing in time with her rising fear, a streak of agony highlighted by despair. "Look at me, just look at me." The woman's voice broke through the chaos, her tone as steady as the heartbeat I wished for the girl. She cradled the girl's head with gentle reverence, urging her to seek comfort in the safety of our gathered spirits, but then the air thickened with a chill that felt inexorable. The leader of the men stepped closer, a smug smile curling upon his lips. "What hope do you cling to, healer? Look at her." He sneered, marionette strings more prominent than ever as he thrived in chaos. "This little wretch is merely a vessel. Treat her pain, and it will return tenfold." I fought the bile rising in my throat, each sneer intensifying my resolve. I glanced around, meeting the eyes of the villagers, each face reflecting their own mix of exhaustion and defiance. We were more than just a collection of voices, we were a spirit forged in fire. "No one will define our worth but us," I declared, channeling every ounce of my strength into words cast into the fray. "We will fight for her, for each other," but the shadow of doubt lurked in my mind, a cruel echo, coiling around the hope I struggled to maintain. What if our unity wasn't enough? What if the darkness was just too vast? Just then, the woman in the cloak exhaled sharply, her energy swirling like the tempest outside. She locked eyes with me, and in that gaze, I found a flicker of understanding, a shared fear, yet intertwined with a strain of empathy. "You are stronger than you know. Help me channel your energies, let the love you feel for her flow through us." With a hesitant nod, I positioned myself beside her, placing my palm against the girl's arm, the warmth of her skin igniting a flame within me. I closed my eyes and envisioned all the children of the town, the laughter, the joy, the light they brought, and I allowed that light to flow through me, a quiet prayer rising from my soul to intertwine with the woman's spirit. As we tapped into this collective fervor, the shadows at the edges of the room wavered, creating a barrier against the men. I could almost hear their laughter crack, the air thickening with the virtue of our combined hopes. Suddenly, the girl's breath returned, slow but steady, and with each intake, I felt a whisper of victory, but that brief moment of joy shattered as the shutters rattled against the howling winds, the men beginning to laugh again, a cacophony that threatened to drown our fragile light. "How quaint!" their leader roared, voice coated with venom. "You think a little charm can protect you? Look! The darkness will always uncover your hidden truths." At those words, a knot formed in my stomach. What did he mean? I shared quick glances with the villagers, faces now twisted with uncertainty. What hidden truths? What bleak realities had I left behind? Had I, in my quest for acceptance, invited a darkness I wasn't prepared to face? With a sinking feeling, I felt as if I was teetering on the edge of an abyss I had long buried beneath layers of denial. The walls seemed to close in, and shadows began to seep into my mind, dredging up past failures and moments that had marked me as a pariah. Don't listen to him, the cloaked woman urged, her voice piercing through my turmoil. Your past does not define you. Her words stirred something deep within, and suddenly, I felt a tide hitting me, a rising courage swelling like a storm within my bones. I could not let his taunts shape me. I wouldn't allow anyone else to sever our flickering hope. Look at her, I cried out, gesturing to the girl, who lay fragile and yet undeniably present. We fight for her. For the love we hold for our children, for our families. Our worth is tethered in this moment, our struggle becomes her life pulse. But even as my words escaped, realization coursed through me, a realization that tore at the seams of my very soul. What if the truth he spoke was already lurking within the shadows of my heart? What if the fragile threads of hope I tried to weave would unravel with every breath I took? Amidst the discord, my gaze found the elder woman, her face a mask of calm resolve, but there were shadows under her eyes, realities that whispered secrets and long-buried fears. Our eyes met, and in her silence, I sensed a harrowing truth that threatened to shatter the tenuous balance of hope we struggled to maintain, and then it came, a realization so sharp, it cut through the fog of my thoughts. I could not just face the darkness outside, but also the darkness within. My past choices, my solitude, the fears that had defined me, they had much more power than I dared acknowledge. Then, a shriek pierced the night, the girl's voice breaking forth, raw and frightened. Help me! In that moment, as thunder rumbled with a deafening force, a surge of emotion tied us tighter as a collective, the heartbeat synchronized, binding our fates together in an orchestra of shared desperation and unwavering love. Yet just as we began to gather the strength to retake control, the door flew open, revealing a chilling figure cloaked in shadow, a face I recognized, one that had haunted my thoughts, a ghost from my past returning to claim what remained of my spirit. Did you think you could escape me? The figure intoned, voice dripping with mockery. You've provided promising fodder, enough to draw me back to this charade. Isn't this quaint? You're still the scared little midwife, drowning in your own shadows. The room chilled, faith thinned into uncertainty, and just as I locked eyes with the apparition of my past, I felt hope waver. In that moment, the tussle between light and dark crescendoed. Who would prevail? Would we fight not just for the girl, but against the breaking chains of our own haunting regret? All of its storm, the shadows, the girl's cries came crashing down like waves against the jagged rocks of my spirit. But then, amidst the encroaching darkness, the flicker sparked once more within me, a reminder that I had stood at the edge of despair before, and in choosing love, I had kindled the strongest light. Enough! I screamed, cutting through the biting winds, confronting the dark figure before me with a fiery glare. You don't get to define me anymore. My voice rang out like a bell tolling against fate, rich with the power of my resolve. As I spoke, something shifted around us, weaving through the storm-tossed air. The cloaked woman nodded at me, eyes alight with understanding. You must remember. Her voice was steady, glowing with unyielding strength amidst the chaos brewing around us. Your past is but a shadow, molded by choices. You are free to choose again, and so I summoned the collective spirit of everyone gathered within those hallowed walls, our hands clasped in connection and purpose. I could feel the warmth of my friends alongside me, their energy woven into mine like threads binding a tapestry of hope. We were not defined by the pain or mockery we had once endured. No, we were forging a new legacy, one that resonated with fierce love and unwavering courage. The whispers of despair echoed around me, but I held tight to my belief. We could reclaim our narratives. It was then that the girl stirred once more, a soft gasp escaping her lips. Her fragile form lay bathed in golden light as if defying the fierce shadows that sought to swallow her whole. Fight for her, I urged, and the townsfolk seemed to rally as their breath steadied, hearts synchronizing with the pulse of hope resonating in the air. We are stronger together. Our love will pierce the darkness. With each resonant word, the winds outside swelled, a tempest of energy responding to our communal pledge. The warmth enveloped the sanctuary as the men flinched, the cunning glee draining from their taunts like sunlight receding beyond a horizon. They were animals in the dark, but we were beings tinged with light, alive with purpose. Suddenly, the cloaked woman leaned in, her fingers delicately brushing the girl's brow, igniting a pulse of energy that shifted the very fabric of our gathering. "Rise!" she whispered, her voice tender yet fierce, as if she were calling every wounded spirit to stand with her. It was then that the girl's eyes fluttered open, her gaze connecting with mine, translucent but shimmering with a newly christened spirit. The room exhaled, we held our breath, and in that tenuous pause, the world felt boundless, full of possibility. As the thunder rumbled in response, a roar of defiance erupted from our gathered souls, echoed by the sharp crackle of lightning that lit the sanctuary. We could rise above fear, we could rewrite the narrative that had long jailed us. The stairs creaked beneath me as I stepped closer, the walls vibrating with righteous courage. I lifted my chin. This voice of old weighed me down no longer. "You will not come between us," I shouted at the dark figure who hovered menacingly by the door. "You have no power here." And with that proclamation, the shadows slithered back, pushed away by the burgeoning light of our unity. The cloaked woman turned to me, a knowing smile playing on her lips. "You have finally claimed your place," she said softly, and that sense of belonging wrapped around me like an embrace, erasing lifetimes of doubt in one stalwart moment. But what followed next was unexpected. A cacophony of remorse spit from my past flickered through my thoughts, shaping the darker crowd into ghosts from my memory, faces full of disdain. They appeared before me, their mockery echoing loud and clear, but I refused to yield. The girl's breath steadied, strength flooding her spirit, a wave of life cascading through the room. Every hand held in solidarity was an echo of hope, urging me to conjure even deeper courage from within. "Together, we mend what has been broken," I declared, lifting my hands to meet the charged air. "And together no more shame, no more silencing. We are midwives of this town's future." A seismic crack rattled through shared hearts, igniting a chorus of resolve, families standing to embrace the chorus of our vulnerability, our compassion battling ignorance. And just like that, amidst the storm that raged outside, amidst the darkness that sought to seep in, we became a force, igniting flickering shadows in a swirl of fierce light. The girl sat up, strength blooming alongside her, a soft smile gracing her lips, illuminating the space around us. "You're my midwife," she whispered, each word a blessing that flowed from her spirit. "You saved me." That was my answer, a realization curling through my heart like a flicker, rekindling the flames long thought lost. Forgiveness. Acceptance. Love. In that moment, it wasn't about the judgments from those who misunderstood, it was about standing tall and reclaiming our truth, no matter how steep the path. As I turned to the townsfolk, warmth coursing through me like electric currents, I declared it loudly, imbued with love, "You have all the power to rewrite your stories. To weave threads of hope where doubt lingered. We can create a future together, one without the shadows of our past." And amidst the roiling storm outside, a fragile yet unyielding harmony danced, pulsing through us like the heartbeats of the children we all aspired to protect. The final words arrived as if from the heavens themselves, echoing from every heart in that space: "We stand together." The storm raged louder, yes, but we embraced its chaos, welcoming it wholeheartedly as part of our story, knowing we could weather it all and rise anew. And that moment, amidst laughter and tears, amidst sorrow and joy, became my truth, the essence of my renewal. From that day forward, I carried their stories as they carried mine, forever bound in the sacred tapestry of love and resilience. We emerged from the storm reborn, our hearts entwined in fearless hope, a force against the tide of fate. The last line etched itself into the fabric of my heart, reminder: together, we are not defined by the shadows we carry, but the light we dare to share.